tax is the greatest financial liability in all our lives. Every time we earn a penny, we pay tax. Every time we spend a penny, we pay tax. We save money, we pay tax. We give money to our kids, they pay tax. Tax, 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 tax. Tax is the greatest financial liability in all our lives. And therefore, tax is the greatest obstacle to us achieving our financial ambitions.
You're very welcome to another Coffee with Colm. This is a very special Coffee with Colm mini-series, and it's where I talk to Mr. Paul Overy, a good friend of mine, about tax planning. Why? Because we're in October and it's tax planning season here in Ireland. So great to have you along. Thanks for being here. Over the next 4 weeks, we're going to cover some very interesting topics that we all need to know to make sure that we pay as little tax as we possibly can. Paul Overy, you're very welcome.
Thanks, Colm. Nice to be here.
You're a financial planner. Just give us a potted history, 30 seconds.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been involved in the financial industry all my working life. As you say there, my current role is described as financial planner. And the job of financial planner is to, first of all, understand the key financial objectives of his or her client. And then to, once that is the case, to help them deliver those objectives over a period of time, over their lifetime, I suppose. So the difference, I think, between a financial planner and a financial advisor, financial advisors tend to work for the institutions and get paid to sell, prepackaged products. Financial planners work for the client and help them purchase the products they need to achieve their financial goals, be they short, medium, or longer term.
Wow, that's a very interesting distinction, and one that I wouldn't, and certainly the man on the street, I don't think, wouldn't necessarily pick up on. We've probably been trained over the years, Paul, to consider one and but the other the same, and they're clearly not.
Yeah, and we do look alike too, Colm. I remember saying years ago to a sales trainer, he asked me what's the greatest difficulty you have, and I said the difficulty is differentiating what I do from the standard financial advisor. And his retort was, "You look like a standard financial advisor." I said, "Oh, okay." That is true. It is a difficult distinction, but I think the easiest way to look at it is say, financial planners like me charge their clients direct fees, whereas financial advisors tend to do what they do for free from the client's perspective because they're getting paid by somebody else.
Okay. Interesting distinction, but a very important distinction. But as I think the layman on the street, and I'll represent the layman here in the street. I think we don't think about it enough. In fact, it's why you and I are having this conversation now. It's October 2023 here in Ireland, right? And it's tax season. Yeah. All of a sudden, me and every other dog and devil in the street is thinking, right, how do I minimize my tax, right? And I know. Yeah. I know that you're going to give us a couple of tips over the next couple of weeks, right? We're going to break this conversation down into 4 different sections. So we get to that. We get to the tips, the how we can reduce the tax we pay legitimately. Yes. Okay, we get to that. But before we go there, and I know over the next number of weeks you're going to give us 3 very specific tips, because when you and I started talking about this, I think we both agreed it's so vast, right? It's so vast, and the layman in the street doesn't want to. There's fellas like you and girls out there who love what you do, right? For us, it's a pain in the neck, necessarily pain in the neck, right?
Number nerds. We're number nerds, yeah.
Days,
no,
right?
Absolutely, and horses for courses and all of that, right?
Yeah,
and you can't be expert at everything,
Right.
My clientele are predominantly people like you, Colm, people who own and run their own SME, small to medium enterprise. And, there is certainly an attitude afoot when I meet a prospective new client first, that if I could pay less tax, my accountant would have told me so. I must be paying as little tax as legitimately possible, because surely my accountant would have told me if I'm not. And I think that's a fundamental misunderstanding around tax. The predominant role of our accountants, of your accountant, of my accountant, of most of your, the people listening and watching this now, their accountant is to help us pay tax.
That's a counterintuitive thought right there, that our accountant's job is to help us pay tax, not save tax.
There's a very bad joke in the tax world, Colm, and it is, what's the difference between tax avoidance and tax evasion? And the answer is 6 feet, the width of a prison wall. Tax evasion is illegal. Tax evasion is breaking the law of the land and failing to pay taxes that are due. Tax avoidance is using the law of the land to pay as little tax as legitimately possible.
I love it. I love it. And you said to me just before we started this chat, you said to me that it's everybody's right to pay as little tax as is due. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It's a democratic right, effectively, to pay as little tax as legitimately possible. But the key word is legitimately. Tax is the greatest financial liability in all our lives. Every time we earn a penny, we pay tax. Every time we spend a penny, we pay tax. We save money, we pay tax. We give money to our kids, they pay tax. Tax, 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 tax. Tax is the greatest financial liability in all our lives. And therefore, tax is the greatest obstacle to us achieving our financial ambitions.
Wow.
So the less tax you pay, the more of the income and wealth you're creating you keep, the closer you get to your financial goals.
I'm glad you turned that into a positive, because I was getting depressed. Right? Tax. We'll probably be this call.
Some tax concessions exist for a long, long time. It was something we're going to talk about. Retirement planning tax concessions, for example, are on the statute book since 1972. Others come and go, So 15 years ago, the government were very interested in having houses built on the Western Seaboard, and there was a whole bunch of tax concessions given to people who bought houses on the Western Seaboard. To exercise your right to pay as little tax as legitimately possible, you have to, be on top of that, and you have to have somebody in your corner who's not only, explaining the ones that are there for a long time, but are also saying, by the way, there's a new one this year, or there's a new one for the next 5 years. Here's what it is. Okay. Here's how you might be able to take advantage of it.
Okay, and that leads us to, we spoke about, there is a route to tax minimization. Now, I'll warn our viewers, our listeners at this moment in time, Paul has both good news and bad news. We start with the bad news, Paul. Here we are, it's October 2023. We're all getting into our tax wellies, if you like, to start wading through paperwork and put our tax affairs in order. But the bottom line is, no more than we all get ready for Halloween, we all get ready for tax season around now. We start thinking about it. But the bad news is, Paul, what's the bad news around that?
The bad news is that tax minimization cannot be achieved in arrears.
Okay. And
you can't do it by looking in the rear view mirror.
Okay.
It's impossible to do. Tax minimization is achieved by saying, well, next October 2024 will come along. What am I going to do between now and 2024 that will de-tax my financial world in 2023?
And that's good news.
Yes, the good news is that there are lots of things that can be done.
Cool. Okay, sounds great. So we've set the scene here now, Paul, right? It's October 2023. The bad news, we've identified it or accepted it's too late for what has happened in 2022. We have an opportunity for us now going forward to be utilize tax concessions that are readily available, but we need to forward plan for those, and we can take the lessons from this and apply them into our tax planning going forward. So your nearest and dearest, Paul, because you correctly said this is so big and so wide and so vast, and there's so many nuances within it that we can't possibly cover it all. What we want to do is give people a flavor. So I've asked you to prepare 3 things that you would tell your nearest and dearest, 3 tips. If you could only tell your nearest and dearest 3 things that would help them minimize their tax going forward, not only next year, but forever more thereafter, what would those three things be?
Well, the first one is stop ignoring retirement allowances.